Hi, it's Steph. And a couple of days ago, I posted a video about transplanting some sedum. And in the comments of that video, I had a lot of questions about what to do if your sedum begins to flop. So I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to go over a method called the Chelsea chop. Now, what is the Chelsea chop? The Chelsea chop is a method of cutting back your perennials in late spring to encourage stronger, sturdier, bushier plants and more blooms later in the season. It's named the Chelsea chop because this is typically the time of year around late spring when the world famous Chelsea flower show takes place in London. And so because of the timing of the flower show and when you should cut back your perennials, they name it the Chelsea chop. Now, there are some perennials that are good candidates for the Chelsea chop, and then there are some that aren't. Phlox, Achillea or yarrow, asters, echinacea, rudbeckia, sedum, which we're going to go over today, penstemon, nepeta, and there are a few others. In fact, I found an article done by Gardener's World that I will link in the drop down of the video. Under the video, you'll see something that reads description, see more, and then there will be a link to the article that you can review. Now, perennials are a great candidate. Most herbaceous perennials are a great candidate for this Chelsea chop method. But there are some things that you would not want to use the Chelsea chop on, such as woody shrubs like a hydrangea. The reason you wouldn't want to use the Chelsea chop on a woody shrub like a hydrangea is because you could risk lopping off all of this year's blooms. Woody shrubs don't grow as fast or recover as fast as, say, an herbaceous perennial. So for that reason, you want to stick to the perennials that have been deemed safe to do the Chelsea chop on and stay away from any woody shrub. But things like sedum, for example, which I'm going to do today, would be a great candidate. Now, I transplanted my sedum a couple of days ago, and so while it's doing fine, it is a little bit floppy. So I thought, well, why not try the Chelsea chop on it and see if, one, the plant has more energy to send down to its roots because it's now not supporting all that extra top growth, and two, I might have the added benefit of it becoming a stronger, sturdier plant and my blooms not flopping later on in the season. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, there are other caveats that you should take when you're doing the Chelsea chop. And it is said from the information that I saw when doing a little bit of research that if you've had a particularly dry spring, you might want to be cautious about doing the Chelsea chop because you don't want to stress your plants. So here's what you can do instead. You can choose maybe to do 1 or 2 plants, especially if you're just experimenting with this method. So I have 5 sedums across this bed. I'm going to choose 1 or 2 of the ones that are flopping the most or that had the most top growth, and I'm going to go ahead and selectively prune and do a Chelsea chop on those. Now, when you do the Chelsea chop, you're only supposed to take off about 1/3 of the plant, of the top growth. But there's also another method. You can either take off 1/3 of the growth of the whole plant, or you can selectively prune it and only take off 1/3 of the growth on half of the plant. And so that way you can stagger the blooms. So you'll get those first initial blooms, and then the part that you cut down will bloom for you later. So now that we've discussed the Chelsea chop, let's go ahead and do the Chelsea chop on a couple of my sedum. Here is a clump of autumn joy sedum that I divided earlier this week. And where I cut the plant and made the division, I can see that some of the stems are a bit more floppy and drooping a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my snips and I'm going to go down about 1/3, and I'm going to go ahead and cut them and take off any of this extra top growth so that the plant doesn't have to support that extra weight, and it can put its energy into creating more roots and more stems and hopefully more blooms later this summer. Well, I am all done with the Chelsea chop on my autumn joy sedum. I transplanted 5 clumps of autumn joy sedum across the front of this bed, and there were 2 of the larger clumps that had a little bit more of the flopping going on. So those are the ones that I chose to do the Chelsea chop on. So now all that's left to do is to give them a drink of water. I'm also left with all of these cuttings. And sedum is one of the easiest perennials to propagate. All you would have to do is take one of the stem cuttings and take some of this foliage off. And then you can do one of 2 things. You can stick it in a pot with some potting soil and let it grow and create roots and then plant it out in the garden. Or you can even skip that step and take your finger or a tool, poke a hole into the soil and put your cutting right in, and it will begin growing a new plant for you. Sedum is a really fun plant to propagate and super easy. Once you've done your Chelsea chop, the last step is to water your plant really well, and if it's a perennial that does well with fertilizing, you would want to go ahead and give it a feed. Something like a granular or well-balanced fertilizer, I like to use the Espoma Plant Tone, would be fine. I will not be fertilizing sedum because sedum is a plant that doesn't need fertilizing. Now, if you haven't tried the Chelsea chop before, I would encourage you to take a look around the garden, see if there's something that you can experiment on with this method and see what you think. If you have tried it before, then leave me a comment and let me know what your experience is with it. And that is it. I hope that you found this video informative and helpful. Thank you for spending your time with me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up button. And please consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my future videos. And we'll see you soon.